Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format on this show. A ton of questions to get into this week, so we're just going to kind of jump right into it. And we're going to start with a question from Arendal, who has a new profile pic from the game he was at in Cincinnati with, I believe, his son. So awesome stuff there. Happy for you to go out to the game. Happy you made it back home safe. But the question is, who worries you the most on the Patriots offense, not counting the quarterback? Honestly, it doesn't change whether we factor in Mac Jones or not. It's the offensive line for the Patriots. They have actually been performing at a very high level. I think that's the part of that team that can give the Browns the most issue. Last week, they had a very strong performance running the ball because of that offensive line. I think a lot of Mac Jones' successes are because of that offensive line. So, yeah, that's the one that gives me some concern, right? Is this defensive line going to be able to get pressure against the Patriots versus what is a very good offensive line? Now, the good news is that they don't have a lot of good extra pass protectors in that Patriots team, right? They don't have a great pass blocking tight end. They don't have a ton of extra guys that they like to throw out there. So you will get some one-on-one opportunities with Clowney and Miles. But if they're able to hold their own against Clowney and Miles, which is a tall task for anybody, even for a very good offensive line, Browns might be in a little bit of trouble there because that allows the Patriots to do everything else that they do on the offensive side of the ball. The next question comes from DPJ, wide receiver 1 season, who asks, do you think Stefanski will open up the playbook more since Chubb will be out and New England is a good run defense? I don't think not having Nick Chubb is going to open up the offense by any means. I think we're probably going to see less of the offense without Nick Chubb out there because Nick Chubb and his presence and how you have to worry about the run when Nick Chubb is out there opens a lot of things up in the passing game. Now, does this mean that they will have to get more creative? If that's what you were asking, would the Browns get more creative on the offensive side of the ball to make up for the production they're not going to get with Nick Chubb? I think that's absolutely going to happen here. But if the question is, will it open up what's already there? No, I don't think it's going to open up anything. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Browns operate, right? Run-heavy team with one running back that's gotten snaps this year available to play. That's going to be an interesting dynamic to keep your eye on. This is going to be an interesting week for Kevin Stefanski, quite frankly, right? Because what New England does do well is stop the run. And, what this situation has weakened is most definitely your run game. So how do you adjust? What do you lean on? Who do you rely on, right? This would have been a game, if you had a star receiver that you were obviously it worked out with, in the perfect world that the Odell Beckham thing had worked out. Or maybe this might be a week for Jarvis Landry to get a focus, but you're going to want to rely on some of your studs in the passing game. So I would expect maybe a lot of David Njoku this week. Austin Hooper, it would be nice for him to come out of hibernation. And Jarvis Landry, he's had a couple of rough games in a row here. And, it would be nice for Jarvis. Well, he didn't have a rough game against Cincinnati, just not a big game. So it would be nice for Jarvis to put an exclamation point on his season right here. So, yeah, they're going to have to lean on other guys here, but they have other guys. I just want to see what Kevin does to make up for it. The next question comes from Casey Kinnaman, who says, which personnel grouping do you think will give the Patriots the most trouble? 12. I mean, that's probably it, right? 12 personnel. Because, again, the Patriots defense is very strong in run defense. But what makes them strong in run defense also leaves them vulnerable in that short middle area of the field, which is their linebackers, right? Their linebackers are really good in run defense to the point where you can't take them off the field. And they're also not good at all in pass coverage. So when you get that 12 personnel out there, again, it would be a great week to have Nick Chubb because this would force their hand even more. But let's say you get that 12 personnel out there and you prove that you can run the ball with D'Ernest Johnson out that 12 personnel package, then you're going to put the Patriots in a bind, right? Do you counter that 12 with what you would normally counter it with? Or do you leave your linebackers on the field, or do you change up your packages so that you have more athletic defenders out there, maybe more DBs out there? But again, you're going to put more DBs in a heavy package that the Browns run out of a lot, as well as passing out of a lot. So that 12 personnel that the Browns do a lot, Nick Chubb or not, it's going to put stress to the Patriots defense, and I expect them to go to that 12 personnel a ton this week. So I don't know if this is going to be a big Donovan Peoples-Jones game. I would love to be wrong on that one, but I do think this is probably going to be a big tight end game here for somebody. The next question comes from Ben Alt, who says, we have seen Baker lead with his arm. Titans, Steelers, Bengals. Is this another game where Baker gets the green light? Not because we need to, but because no one expects us to. This is interesting, right? And it's almost like, and allow me to be a little nerdy here, but you guys know how light years are pretty much like it's the time it takes for the light to hit our eyes, but like what we're seeing, like a star is like 1,000 light years away. We're seeing that star from 1,000 years ago on Earth based on what it's actually doing right now. So that's how like light years work. And when I watch the national media talk about Baker Mayfield sometimes, it's like I'm watching them talk about this dude 2 years ago, and they perceive him as he was 2 years ago. And I imagine this is like this for a lot of other fan bases and a lot of other teams, right? Because just the way these national sports talk mills work, right? Where they hire a bunch of dudes to talk about a bunch of broad stuff, so they can't really focus in on anything, right? The ESPN used to have people that they dedicated to specific teams nationally, right? So you would have the local ESPN guys, and then you would have the national people who worked for ESPN, were on SportsCenter, but also, just were general beat reporters for maybe that area if they didn't have too many teams, or a specific team if they had a big money team, right? I think Dave McMenamin, before he became the Cavs guy, used to be the Browns guy, or there might have been somebody else who used to be the Browns national kind of guy. They don't do that anymore, right? They've corporatized everything to the point to where they have cut everything that's not essential. So now they have a bunch of guys. This question turned into a one-on-one on cable sports talk over the years, but I'm glad to do it. But now it's turned into, we have a bunch of guys who do the same thing, who talk about everything. So what you lost in that, and why a lot of people perceive the coverage from maybe 10 years ago to be much better and more fair for their market, especially if you're in a smaller market, is because of those cuts, right? When they cut all of those auxiliary ESPN personnel who specifically would represent a team, and then when they would bring up that team on NFL Live, they would bring up that person. They lost that vital information for the national guys, where they're getting information that locally we know because we've watched every game. What you get on ESPN is national guys who don't necessarily get the time to watch every game, maybe bits and pieces here or there, but more than likely they're watching highlight packages like the rest of us, right? They're very rarely is somebody going to have the time to really go in and watch all, however many 15, 16 games that happen throughout a week. That's a lot to do here. And let alone watch it in real time. Maybe a condensed version, but you still miss stuff in that. And that's why the coverage has so many holes in it, to the point to where people will get on national TV and say things like Baker doesn't have a strong arm. It's ridiculous. Again, I'm not somebody who's not willing to criticize Baker Mayfield. I have obviously done that in the last 3 years. But that's just, the arm strength is not one I would be critical of. But anyways, that's why you end up with these gaps in knowledge between what people locally know about a team and what people nationally know about a team, because everywhere has done it. Fox Sports has done it. They have dramatically cut their local presences, and even then the local doesn't interact with the national like they used to. It's happening in newspapers, even on like high school football levels, right? Where people don't really report for a league or a grouping of high schools anymore. It's like 2 people to cover the whole state. So those cuts have really affected how things get reported up from a local to national level. Now, why did I bring up that whole diatribe? This is what I mean by when we say people don't expect the Browns to lean on Baker Mayfield. It depends on who doesn't expect it, right? I completely expect this. That's why I'm not panicking about this game because no Nick Chubb, no Kareem Hunt, but they got enough there on the offensive side of the ball that they can lean on that and they'll be fine here. It really wouldn't be a surprise if Baker came out through about 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and looked very good and was the leading force behind this game. How people are going to react to this nationally, because now they're paying attention because this whole Odell thing is attached to it, is going to be interesting to say the least, because just people haven't been paying attention. But yeah, I would think that's how they're going to do here. One thing to note though, one of the people who is not going to underestimate Baker Mayfield is Bill Belichick. Let's not forget, Bill Belichick has been a long and well-documented fan of Baker Mayfield. He legitimately tried to trade up for Baker Mayfield. If Baker went past, I believe, the Giants at 2, he was going to try to trade up at 3, especially if the Jets didn't take him at 3. He was going to trade up and get Baker Mayfield. Bill Belichick loves him some Baker Mayfield. So that's not the defensive coordinator or the defensive mind that's going to go into this week and underestimate Baker Mayfield. Nationally, they might do it, but Bill Belichick, not somebody who's going to do it. I'm sorry I took the scenic route to get to the answer to that question, but I thought, there's some good information in there to talk about why the coverage has also been so bad and why there's such a disconnect between what people who locally cover the team and nationally think, and why it's gotten so big over the years is because, again, they streamlined stuff to their own detriment now. The next question comes from Clowney will get 8 sacks, who says, what do you think the Patriots are going to do to stop our run game? I know they have some ballers on the defensive line. Patriots aren't going to really do that much different to stop the run game. They believe they can stop it with their base personnel, and I wouldn't blame them for thinking that. They have a very strong base personnel package versus the run, and their numbers would bear that out. Now, they've never played an offensive line quite like the Cleveland Browns offensive line. If they're firing on all cylinders, they haven't done that all year, the Cleveland Browns offensive line. But that being said, I think they should be fine. I don't think they're going to resort to trickery to stop the Browns on the ground. I think they're going to line it up like they normally do and just to see if they can stop it. Dylan, with a question here, says, what kind of scheme do you think Belichick will draw up to stop the Browns offense? If the Browns are rolling, it seems like you can't just focus on taking away a single player, which is something Belichick is known for. He might not try to take away a single player, but he might try to take away a single concept, right? And I think what's more likely that Belichick's going to come into this game and try to take away is the play action pass. I think he's going to be more worried about that than he is going to be about the running game, and he is going to be about the straight passing game. I think he wants the Browns to get into empty a lot because the more we throw, the more likely it is that they can get turnovers, and that's how they win football games. But that play action pass game, he's worried about that. So I would expect that he's going to play this game kind of concerned about that and less concerned about the straight-up run game. This next question comes from Josh Fox, whose tag suggests that he cheers for Michigan. And look, I'm not an Ohio State fan or anything, but I am somebody who understands that must be rough for you, man, cheering for Michigan. I mean, it's going good right now. But, we know how this ends for Michigan usually. But we'll see. But nonetheless, trolling aside, your question was, with the lack of depth at running back, do you think they will stick DEJ with the bulk of the carries, Dearness Johnson, or will we see more gadget plays and end arounds, or Jarvis lining up at running back? We're probably going to see Jarvis lining up at running back. I don't know how many tricks they're going to play here because they got dudes who are on the roster for a day playing at running back. So keep it simple. You know what I mean? Straight handoffs for those dudes. Because they don't even got John Kelly for this game, right? They got nobody except for Dearness Johnson and whoever they signed off the street. So I don't think they're gonna get tricky. I think you'll see some Jarvis lining up at running back. We'll see if Jarvis is down to do that. He's done it before, but we'll see where he's at with that. But yeah, it's gonna be a interesting effort. Look, they're not gonna be able to run the ball as much as they want to in this game, just because they just don't have the personnel at running back right now to do that. So they're going to have to resort to other things, some trickery. So they're going to have to get creative. They're definitely going to have to get creative and draw some new things up this week. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.